Ahoy, Minnetonka! I'm David Law, Superintendent of Minnetonka Schools. Thank you for joining us for this episode of our district podcast, Ahoy, Minnetonka. Today we're talking virtually to Tom Murray. He is a renowned national speaker and the host of one of the top educational podcasts in the nation, Leading Through Unprecedented Times. Tom joined us here in Minnetonka for two events in August. First is the keynote for our retreat with our administrative leaders, and then again for our Welcome Back to Staff kickoff event. Tom, thanks for joining us today. It seems like it was just yesterday you were here, but that was way back in August, and now it's December. If you wouldn't mind, can you give a little bit about your educational background leading up to your work in this podcast?
Absolutely. And David, first, thanks for having me back. What an incredible time we had, the opportunity to be in your community twice. And the first thing I'll say is I definitely prefer the weather in August in Minnesota as opposed to December. So I think I'm going to be coming in virtually today. No, it's awesome to be back with you all. And hello to your incredible community, your incredible educators that are there. So just a little bit about my background. It's funny because a lot of the things that maybe we'll talk about today or that I often get to talk about is authentic learning and creating really rich experiences. And when I reflect on my own high school experiences, at one time I wanted to be a pilot, and then I got to test it and realized like one mistake and it's all over. So I don't want to do that anymore. And then I wanted to be a doctor and I wanted to support kids and be a pediatrician. And I learned very quickly, I don't want to just work with kids when they're sick. I want to be able to work with them every single day. So I went into education. I started as an elementary teacher, loved that. And then I went and I taught secondary, and I was able to teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade and look at some different content and some areas that I was passionate about. Then one time I had a principal walk in my room and say, got about 3 years left, and I'd love to see you running the building when I leave, which inspired me to get my principal certification. So I was in our secondary principal. I was an elementary principal, went to then district office, and then I obviously couldn't keep a job. So now I work out of Washington, D.C. Makes total sense, right? And so now I get to work nationally, get to be all across the country, working with school and district leaders, getting to see amazing districts just like you all. So thank you for having me back. What an honor it was to connect with your amazing staff, your leaders, and then your entire staff in August. And I'm honored to be back with you.
Tom, you had shared a powerful message, and I hate to put you on the spot, but you've got a personal connection to why schools need to treat students as individuals. And you shared a little bit about your daughter and her experience coming through the school system. I think it's relevant as we talk about individualized learning. Would you share a little bit of that passion with us?
One of the things I wrote in my last book, in Personal and Authentic, is that there's great synergy between a child's well-being and his or her ability to learn. You know, when we look at it, when we look at schools are often tasked with seamlessly like solving some of society's issues, right? And students show up each and every day coming from different homes and different structures and different needs, and they have different interests and passions and strengths. And schools try to pull all of that together to support them each in a personal way. And so, when I think about a child's story, one of the things that we think about as human beings, I think on one hand, we can look at just the great mental health crisis we have across our nation. And that's not just with students, certainly with adults as well. But when we think about the well-being, and it's why part of what I just love about your vision in Minnetonka and the team there, this notion of belonging. At the end of the day, sure, the reading, the writing, the math, the experiences are so vital for schools. And I would never want anybody to hear that I don't think that's important, because that's certainly not the message. It absolutely is. But if we can support students in a way that they do feel like they belong, when they walk into the school, they feel like they have a community. They walk into a classroom, they recognize a relationship with a teacher that cares with them. They can look around the room and see people that they can go to, that they can trust or get some support, or in the same sense, can push them academically, right? And so when we think about it, it's recognizing what I call the hidden stories within. And at the end of the day, I'm also not just talking about our students. I'm also talking about our staff, or David, you as a superintendent, or those working throughout our schools. It's the stories on our hearts that nobody else here knows. And one of the things I shared back in August is, hidden, as I call it, doesn't necessarily mean bad. Maybe it's a really good thing. Maybe you're watching this podcast today and coming up over break, you're super excited because you're going to see family that you haven't seen in a long time and you can't wait. And it impacts your lens, right? It impacts your mood. But as real as that can be, maybe you're struggling because maybe the holidays bring memories of sorrow and struggle and trauma and all those other pieces. And that impacts your lens, doesn't it? It impacts your mood. It impacts the anticipation of coming what's up. And maybe that's just looking at it from an adult end, but each day students enter our classrooms in Minnetonka and all across the nation with stories on their heart, sometimes really good things and sometimes struggles. And so one of my challenges back in August to educators is, how do we get to know the stories of our students? How do we get to know the stories of our colleagues? And I'm in no way, shape, or form asking folks to, share something that they wouldn't want to or something they'd be uncomfortable. That's not what I mean, but creating that sense of belonging. And I love that your phrase there and calling it that, Minnetonka, where people feel like they're part of something. Innately as human beings, we want to belong. We want to be part of something. We want to be part of a group. We're social creatures. And so for teachers, my challenge is to create that environment where kids want to be, the environment where kids run to, not run from, right? And as leaders, creating a district where people want to teach, where people want to come work, where they want to be. And as our community leaders, fostering a community where people want to be, and so with that, I think whether we're talking about students, whether we're talking about teachers, that sense of belonging, one of your key missions in Minnetonka, is exactly, to me, the foundation of really what matters most in our schools.
Yeah, I've never met a parent who was unhappy that our teachers love their kids so much, right? If that's our goal, is that, love them first. There are all these classic books about public education. They'll grow with us if we love them first when they walk in the classroom. And so I love that you shared that you had kind of a blend of personal and professional, but challenging our staff to be that person that kids run to, not run from, as a kickoff. So thanks for resharing that. I think it's a powerful message. Certainly at this time of year, understanding everyone enters the end of a calendar year with different emotions, and whether you're looking at the last year as something where you've accomplished or you haven't met your goals, there's a fresh start in here. Lots of good emotional things to bring into a school system. I'm going to shift gears. Let's talk about, what is a future-ready school for our public who don't know that. Clearly, you work at that organization. Talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. The organization in which I work is called Future Ready Schools, nonprofit, bipartisan, out of DC. And at the end of the day, we're really trying to help districts create relevant learning experiences for our kids to prepare them for a changing workforce. And I'm going to give a shout out to you all and turn the tables here for a moment, because just this past week, and working nationally, I get to see so many things from coast to coast. And just this past week, somebody asked me, point me to a district that's leading the way on innovation. What are they doing? What's different? How are they preparing their kids to work for the world of work? And I need to tell you that you all were on the top of my list for one thing that I shared. And granted, there's no perfect place. And I know you're continuing to work and improve. And that's one of the things that I will say that I'm so impressed with working with you all is it's this notion of wanting that continuous improvement, not just resting on our success laurels where we currently are, but to say, how do we make this better for kids? And I think it's at the heart of your iteration processes to design experiences for kids that are going to be relevant for today's learners. But when I define a future ready school, first and foremost, it's about mindset. It's about recognizing that we're going to be learner centered. We're here for kids. This is the purpose of why we do what we do. Schools don't exist so adults have jobs. Schools exist so that we can transform and change the future to support our local economy, our state economy, to help provide, to help produce these productive citizens. And yes, the math and the reading and the writing is so vital in that work, but so are so many of the other skills that we're tasked with supporting them on. So when I think about what a future ready school is, I would say it's a school just like your high schools and just like your district, or a future ready district, that's working diligently to create access and opportunities to experiences, rich experiences for kids to be able to be prepared for their future in a world that's constantly changing. When we think about AI over the past year and just its influence in society and businesses and how things are so quickly changing, how some aspects of the world of work are accelerating double-digit pace, looking at cybersecurity and all those pieces. And I love your navigation or your aviation stuff that you're all doing. And part of it is why? Well, look at the projection of the need for pilots and other folks in the industry, right? And looking at that and saying, well, if we know that these are going to be some of the needs for students and the projections of the world of work, we know these industries are growing really rapidly. And in the same sense, we know these industries are going away over here or diminishing, or these jobs over here aren't really going to be much relevant for much longer. It's shifting systems to say, how can we support students and preparing them for life after high school? I think sometimes districts look at graduation as kind of that last step of hey, we did it. Here's our great graduation rate. But future ready districts like yourself look and say, that's also a beginning point for the rest of the life for that child, to give them the skills, the aptitudes, the emotional abilities inside and supporting that to do what it is that they want to do in life. When I wrote Personal and Authentic, I wrote about how do we leverage the interests, the passions, and the strengths, recognizing that each child is an individual, and Future Ready Schools recognize that. It's not just this one size fits all sit and get approach. It's recognizing how can we make the experience relevant, exciting, and support students in what it is that they want to do, provide the access and the opportunities. And it's school districts just like yours, David, that are doing that from coast to coast. And I get so excited when I walk into a place like yours and I see folks saying, you know what, even though we had great success over here, we're going to launch this over here because it's what our students need, because in our world of work, there's going to be great opportunity for them and we're going to change for them. And I think that's exciting to see some of the work that you're doing, but other places across the country are as well.
Tom, I appreciate that. You know, the two things that drive me crazy as a superintendent are when people say schools are the same as they were 50 years ago, and I scratch my head and I look for evidence, and we still have students and we still have staff. That hasn't changed. And we still are trying to prepare them for the future with math, English, science, and social studies. But everything else has changed. How we interact with knowledge, how we interact with products, the project-based work, the types of experiences. And the other part that I just can't reiterate enough, everyone says you're preparing every kid as if they want to go to a four-year school, is I'm sitting on our construction trades or our automotive classes or our, all these other strands of high school experience that have never existed. School is forward-leaning for the most part and trying to be individualized. Well, I'm going to give a little shout out here. You have a podcast of your own. If people want to venture over to your podcast, first of all, what's it called? And what might they be hearing in the next few months?
We call it Leading Through Unprecedented Times. We launched it through Future Ready Schools, my home organization where I work, 2 weeks into COVID, when we recognized the whole 2 weeks to flatten the curve isn't going to be so successful. We recognized that people needed hope. And so Leading Through Unprecedented Times highlights incredible school and district leaders, as well as those that influence the space, to encourage, to give hope, but also to show them what's possible. Many times in a district we'll say we could never do that. Our high schoolers would never be able to do that. And then an hour away on less of a budget, they're crushing it. And so it's to help also paint a picture of what's possible, to recognize the real challenges that are out there, but to recognize with challenges come opportunities. And so on the podcast, I've had folks like John Gordon, who isn't in himself an educator, but is somebody that recognizes mindset matters. The positivity matters. When I get up in the morning, if I'm looking for negativity, I'm going to see it in my community all over the place if that's what I'm looking for. But if I wake up in the morning, I want to look throughout my community, seeing greatness, see incredible people, I'm going to see it all over the place. The way we expect to see the world is going to influence that. So somebody like John can speak to our mindset matters. Or bringing in incredible superintendents. And David, I'm inviting you to be the first guest for season 5, because I would love to highlight the incredible things happening in Minnetonka. But to highlight superintendents of the year, I think about my last one was Calvin Watts. Calvin's an incredible superintendent in Gwinnett in Georgia. And thinking about those Future Ready Schools, they just launched the first AI pathway that we know about in the nation for high schoolers, right? And so they're pushing the envelope down there as well. And look at the explosion of AI, of cybersecurity, and all those different pieces. And so he was talking about access and opportunity in the digital world, because anybody that looks at the world of work recognizes cybersecurity is not going away. AI is not going away. And so to be able to give that message and also show how districts are starting to push the envelope. And this isn't a district with just one school. This is the 11th largest district in the country with 250,000 kids that's really looking to do some of that. Bringing in principals, taking what does it look like at the ground level? What are we wrestling with? But then how are we creating opportunities? And so whether it's a superintendent of the year, an amazing person like you, a principal of the year, we've had some teachers of the year, and not of the year, not that that's the end all be all, but some just really high quality folks that continue to innovate, continue to create that sense of belonging where people want to be. And also I'll go back to one of the other pieces that I remember you keep pushing this summer is the expectation for excellence. And nowhere is this lowering the bar for folks. This is not just saying, well, like I was talking earlier, you've been through something, so we're just going to lower the bar for you. That's not the expectation from anybody that we highlight on the podcast. It's recognizing in some of those scenarios that excellence, as you all stand on, and it's core to all your work, that's the expectation. But if you've been through trauma, you've been through certain things, you have additional needs, we're going to give you some more love and resources in the process to help get you there. And so having to have folks on that have great stories that support the work. I think about Chris Singleton, whose message of love is stronger than hate, has lost his mother to a really, really difficult scenario that was in the news. But he brings a message of recognizing in the face of adversity, how do we still love people? And so you'll hear a human-centered conversation throughout the podcast, bringing it back to what matters most in our schools and in our community, and that's people.
One, absolutely, I'd be happy to join you. Two, I've had the chance to visit with Superintendent Kelvin. I actually heard him talk about it when he was Superintendent of the Year. It is amazing to listen to other leaders and just look up to the opportunities they provide their students. So the podcast sounds amazing. I look forward to visiting. And as we're wrapping up, you're a former educator. This is a podcast that's going out to educators. You're a parent. Winter break is coming. If in a minute you had to give advice for people about what's a great way to spend 10 days when you're not in school, how do you take care of yourself?
Just being totally vulnerable, I'm not always so good at. You see, educators are the type of people that they go and they give until they've got nothing left. And then they go home and they take care of people. And then they do it again. And then they do it again. And then they do it again. And they do it again. And if we're not careful, we run over ourselves in the process. So my advice to those that will have this break coming up is, number one, recognize you're getting a break for a reason. As good as you are, as talented as you are, it is okay to hit the pause button and to say, you know what? I'm not looking at my email for a number of days. I'm not bringing this or that home because I need time to reinvest in my family. And I know that's something that you all value so much, that sense of belonging, not just at school, but also at home. And when I think about the challenges that our educators have faced and recognizing that the last, like we've been running that last lap of the mile, right, between Thanksgiving and the holiday coming up, and we're tired and we're exhausted. And it's been a long week and we've got this going on and this celebration going on. And then that pause comes right at the end of the day. It's okay to disconnect. You should be spending time with those that you love. And maybe even that's spending some time just reflecting on your own and just the quiet. And so with that, educators, I think sometimes feel guilty about that because you give and that's all you know, and you give and there's always more work to be done. There's always another lesson to plan. There's always another resource. There's always more grading that you can do. But it's okay to hit pause. And so I encourage you to hit pause, to relax, to recharge, to spend time with those that you love the most, to deal with maybe the crazy uncle that you'll happen to have at a table, to soak that in with a grain of salt. We all have that, right? But to have fun in the process. You've been working so incredibly hard. You also need time for you.
Tom, I have the sense you've been that crazy uncle at a family gathering or two. Good for you. I admire that. I've been that guy myself. So thanks for being with us today. And thank you to our community for joining us for this podcast episode of Ahoy, Minnetonka. Have a wonderful break and a great new year, and we'll see you around.